You're listening to the Shipyard Cat Podcast, the unofficial SAFC podcast for fans everywhere.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the pod. We're here today to discuss the up-and-coming game against Burnley on Saturday afternoon, and we'll also be bringing you our preview for Huddersfield on Tuesday evening. Normally, as you know, guys, we would do a split pod, but our lovely editor-in-chief, Mr. Kev, is deciding to have a little bit of a holiday for once, so I suppose we can let him off. So we'll just comprise everything into one pod. Speaking of Kev, he's joining me tonight. Likewise is Robin. Kev, are you all packed ready for your holiday?
I am, mate. Yeah, all good to go, really. Yeah, it's gonna be a bit weird having to almost like leave you two to your own devices, but it's one of those things where it's a 85th birthday that can't be avoided. So, yeah, can't exactly say no at that age, can we?
Exactly. And likewise, Robin, how are you today, buddy?
Yeah, I'm good. So looking forward to obviously the couple of games coming up. Yeah, still quite buzzing from last weekend, to be honest. Obviously the world of football's moving quite rapidly now with transfers and the soap operas that go on in certain clubs. So yeah, it's all good with me, mate.
Excellent. Obviously, there's the one thing for us, which I have seen jokingly on social media, is everyone obviously joking about there's been no transfer news or been no links or anything like that rumored for the last 4 days. So people, as you can imagine, doing the lovely, funny, crazy rants about it, saying, why have we not signed anybody? Fabrizio's gone off us and all that lovely stuff. But I still think there's a sneaky couple coming through the door, but we'll wait and see when that time comes. But on to Burnley. Robin, you've just alluded to there. We're still on a massive high of beating West Ham 3-0 at home. What we're seeing from Burnley, because based on Scott Parker's press conferences this afternoon, I did have a little listen of it. He's came on and went, Sunderland's a completely different squad to what we faced the last time. We've got a new couple of faces, according to him, and they're ready for the challenge. What is our take on Burnley? Can we write them off quite quickly, or is it going to be once again another hard challenge for us?
Look, I wouldn't say we can write them off. Scott Parker is very good at getting his teams defensively sound. However, I think the biggest things that you can say are the fact that they've lost James Trafford, who's obviously gone back to City in his buyback clause, and they've lost CJ Egan-Riley, who was possibly their best defender last season. We know they brought in Carl Walker, but yeah, I mean, no one else really wanted him. It's going to be a tough test, but on reflection, I think with the games we played last season, obviously we beat them at Stadium of Light. Then they completely changed their squad after that, and obviously we played them at their place. Very unlucky not to get away with a win. Obviously, James Trafford and his antics, saving 2 penalties, when realistically he shouldn't have been on the pitch. He should have got booked on the first one. So would he have done the antics second time around? Probably not. He got into Wilson's head a bit, so I think it'll be completely different. I can see us, with the way that we've got our squad now, playing a completely different style of football. We are very quick on the break. We've got pace all over the team. And I think we'll, do really well.
I think, Robin's hit the nail on the head, really, with how to describe Burnley. Defensively, Scott Parker does set them up to be, defensively pretty sound. But yeah, they have lost some big players. They've not really recruited as well as obviously we have. And that's not me trying to sort of, blow smoke up anyone's what's-its, but we've spent 160 plus million. Like, it's not like we've, just brought in a couple of players and said that'll do. Absolutely spot on. Our team is completely different to the team that faced them in the Championship. I put myself through the torture the other day of watching Leeds Everton to kind of just see where the benchmark is of kind of the promoted sides. If Burnley play like Leeds, it's going to be a very hard game because Leeds was still very physical Burnley were obviously in the Championship, like Robin said, defensively one of the best teams in the division, and it's probably going to be a real test on how both sides have changed in the summer. You look at obviously we are very, very quick on the attack now. And like Robin said, they've lost probably their star player in James Trafford. It's just, can we capitalize on them losing their goalkeeper enough to, well, to do what we did to West Ham, get two, 3 goals and just close the game down.
Yeah, that's the thing for me. That I'm in agreement with you both, and that's why I posed that question in that way, because it gets the mind thinking of which way the game could go. And touching on what you both said there, defensively last year they were pretty much I think they were the leaders in the Championship for the majority of most clean sheets for a team in the Championship. Obviously, Trafford played out of his skin. To be honest, his first game for Man City the other day, to me, didn't look like he got out of second gear, but that's because they had a defensively sound themselves. So it always pays if you've got a good defense as a goalkeeper when you've got nothing else to do. But for me, it's one of these things where I don't want to sound horrible when I say this, but their defensiveness got caught out by Spurs. Spurs managed to unlock the door quite easily to them. Obviously, it's not to say that we can't, but I think there's something about Robin, you may be able to help me out here in regards to just the way Spurs unlock the door to Burnley's defence. Do we need to play something similar kind of that, or do we just rely on they try and get the ball up and play? Because obviously, you've both mentioned in the past, the home teams will push out further and try and get on the attack quicker. Do we then just play our style, what we did last year against them, and hit them on the counter attack?
Look, I mean, it's one of those that we gave up possession really against West Ham, but we were quite comfortable to do that. Letting them play the ball around the back, which I expect Burnley to do. Every now and then we'll go with a high press, as it's now known. Try and nick the ball high up the pitch. Apart from that, we are quite happy sitting in that low block, trusting our defenders. I mean, like we said, 9 out of 10 aerial duels won in both boxes versus West Ham, which are a big physical team themselves. It's going to be a tough game. Purely because, they're going to be up for it. They've got a point to prove after, getting turned over by Spurs. I mean, let's not forget Richarlison scored an absolute worldie in that game as well. However, the goals that we scored against West Ham, I mean, the crosses we put in the box and the headers, it's very hard to defend against that. And, we've got that into our game this season. I think the other teams, are probably going to be a bit shocked with that. I think Burnley are probably looking at what we did last season and trying to think of a way to nullify us. But since then, we've got, a lot more pace all over the pitch. And, I mean, we possibly, got one of the best midfielders that's going to be in the Premier League this season. The way he sees a pass, the way he unlocks defences. You look at the defence as well. I mean, the lads that started last week, I mean, Ballard and Silk partnering in the middle. Silk, that hardly has played really for us lately because of injuries and so on. Trey Hume on the right. I mean, it's 3 of the lads that were there, last couple of seasons, really. Obviously, Reynildo, looks an absolute brilliant play. You can see why Diego Simeone loved him at Atletico Madrid. Robin Ruff's, I've waxed lyrical about him already.
Yeah.
But defensively, we're a lot stronger this season, I think. As long as we can keep people fit. I think obviously Xhaka's sitting in front the way he has been doing, leaving Diarra and Siddiqui to, do the work, bags of energy. I can't see any changes this week with the exception of possibly Seal. I know that Rajiv said he was good to go. but he may stick with Aldrete. Obviously, we have got Mukiela and Makuanu available, which obviously we didn't last week, so they're in contention. Which again, big, powerful defenders. You know, there's competition in them places now. I do agree with what you said before. I think there'll be another one through the door at least. I think it will be a striking option, if not another winger, because obviously with Mundell's injury, we are a little bit sort of light. I think the style of football that we're playing, I can see some people leaving as well before obviously the end of the window. But yeah, I just think that Burnley are gonna try and frustrate us. You know, they're probably gonna try and get a set piece goal. I'm going to say. I mean, they did create some opportunities against Tottenham, but I just think, you know, we've developed and evolved so much over the summer with the introduction of these new players, and the quality that we've got is that much higher. And I think it's going to shock a lot of teams, especially in the first sort of 5-6 weeks of the season, when people haven't really got used to us yet. It's going to be interesting when it gets to the sort of like October, November time. You know, when teams are sort of like seeing how we're playing, and, you know, we'll then have a bit more on film about how it's trying to break us down. But, you know, for the foreseeable, I can see us continuing on a little good run, really.
Yeah, perfect. Speaking of the defensive thing, this is where I want your side of it, Kev, because Robin has brought up a really good thing there. Obviously, Regis spoke about in his presser this afternoon, obviously about Sealt saying, yeah, he's fine. Obviously, taking him off as a precaution, which right thing to do in that instance, because obviously it's his back. You need to make sure he is okay. Would you say in that situation, because Sealt did, to me personally, against West Ham, he did nothing wrong. He looked like he grew into the game and didn't look out of place. Would you start Aldrete over the top of him due to the way his performance, like when he came on, or would you say you're still rewarded for the half performance you put in?
It depends on how he's fine. Is he actually fine?
Yeah.
You know, Regis is hardly going to turn around in a press conference 2 days before a big game and say, yeah, so my main choice centre back's injured. Alderete's not quite ready yet. Such and such isn't quite ready yet. Do you know what I mean? He's not going to do it. I think, to be honest, resting Silt or putting Silt on the bench would maybe be the right move, because the last thing you need is a physical Burnley side hitting into him early, doing his back again, and then you're forced to make a change you might not necessarily want to do. At least if you bring him on in the 60th, 70th minute as an extra defender, that reduces the risk of exposure, I suppose, to the dark arts. Because I feel that one thing we are going to come up against, you know, on Saturday, is Burnley are just going to try and beat us up, because it is their style of football. It's physical, it's rough, it's ready, and then they'll try and break you on a counter attack, or like Robin said, from an awkward set piece. But no, I think for me, I do think Sealt will start on the bench this week.
Robin, do you want to share your thoughts on it?
Yeah, no, I think, you know, I think he will probably rest Sealt. I think, you know, bring Alderete. He looked good when he came on. Obviously, he set up the opening goal, so he's got that bit of vision to move forward and put the ball across. So, yeah, I think that will possibly be the only change. You know, possibly he may change my ender for Easter purely for the pace side of it. But my ender's physicality offers us something different. So, yeah, I just think it'll be Silt for Aldrete. I think what my ender offers going forward, holding the ball up, being physical against them, basically wearing them down. So that, you know, when we do make the substitutions, obviously, you know, we've got Mark Guillou on the bench as well, which obviously we'll come on to that in a little bit, my thoughts on him. But yeah, I can basically see a similar sort of thing to West Ham. You know, we'll sit back a little bit deeper, let them come at us, try and hit them on the break, get the possession, then, get them chasing the game. They're the home team, so it is on them. The onus is on them to come at us, because then the crowd's going to get restless. It's probably a shock to them last week, conceding 3 goals in their first game. There is this thing with Scott Parker that he's a great Championship manager, but as soon as he goes up to the Premier League, he gets found out a little bit. Plus, as well, what they were getting away with in the Championship with their mistakes, because teams weren't clinical, they didn't get away with. And obviously, they had opportunities, but they didn't take them. And with the exception of, a handful of games where they scored like 5s and 6s, most of their other games were sort of 1-0 and then 0-0s. They're not an expansive team that's going to score 3-4 goals a game. They are going to struggle quite a lot, I feel, with goal scoring. And like you say, if they do make a little mistake at the back, with the strikers in the Premier League being that bit more clinical and on top of their game, whereas they were probably nicking 1-0s last year, they're probably going to be losing a few 1 or 2-0s this season.
Yeah. It's going to be an interesting one, isn't it? And I'm likewise with yourself in regards to the Mayenda Isidore thing. I think, personally speaking, Mayenda will start because of his physicality and he can force his way through. I know Isidore can as well, but Isidore's got that little bit of a deft touch about him where he wants to glide past the man with the ball, which we saw against West Ham. And I still can't get over how much of acres of space he had to effectively slot that home, and West Ham just looking all defensively out of shape, which was brilliant. You mentioned Mark Guiu. I'm going to bring into us talking about the Huddersfield game as well in regards to this. So we're talking about Guiu. Obviously, he's on loan from Chelsea. We know we have a certain amount of minutes he has to play, X, Y, Z. To me, personally speaking, I think we've all spoke off pod about this briefly. This would be the type of game to bring in Guiu to see what he's like and see how he plays. Am I right? Or what would you guys think on that?
I mean, to me, 100% he starts that game. I also think that you'll see, the likes of Mukiele and Makuanu starting. I think they'll come in. They should be good enough to deal with the Huddersfield team. I did watch Huddersfield against Doncaster the other night to get some kind of idea for them. Obviously they got Gucci there. Obviously, I bloody name misses me now. I had it yesterday. The lad who used to be at Blackburn.
Harness.
Yeah, Marcus Harness. Yeah, no, who's a good player. Certainly for Huddersfield's level in League One, I think, they'll do well. But look, they're facing a Premier League team now. And even if we make wholesale changes, I expect, Lefay to start that game. I expect possibly Riggy to start that game. Maybe Dan Neil. I mean, I don't know with Dan Neil if it's all to do with his contract situation as well. The fact that he never got off the bench, in the last couple of minutes like Rig did. Wilson or Guiu will probably start that game. I do see the Huddersfield probably a few changes. Patterson back in goal. For that, rest Roofs. He's quite clearly the number one goalkeeper in my eyes. So, it's, Noel Huggins has got to come in. He's fit. We've got other players which are fit and need game time as well. I think what will be telling is the ones that don't feature in that game, I think will be out the door by the end of the week. When the transfer window shuts at the start of September, I've got a funny feeling if you haven't featured in that Huddersfield game, then you're going out. I mean, Debris has said that he needs to thin the squad down a bit. And I think that would be the real inclination of who's going to be leaving for us.
Yeah, I think you pretty much summarised it perfectly, Robin, to be honest with you. It's one of those where the Huddersfield game, our focus this year's got to be the league. So, look, don't get me wrong, I think if we fielded a strong side in the cup, we could probably do pretty well in it. but I do think the conversation's probably already been had in the background where it's priority one, Premier League, priority two, any other silverware. Do you know what I mean? It's you would be stupid to send out your first team, in my opinion, on Tuesday night for the risk of what if Isidore, Mayenda, Lefay, any of them get injured. You haven't really got long to try and find another replacement.
Mm-hmm.
Like you got to think the window shuts in just over a week, and we've already started to see how hard the window is getting. You know, Lushimi being a prime example. That's now at like stalling point, isn't it? I think we're at 30 million here, and it's still backwards and forwards. Are Bologna going to let him go?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you pick up an injury in a cup game, especially the Carabao Cup. For me, you're risking far too much for something that's not worth it in the long run.
Yeah. That is my general one of my fears there. I could understand, say, if we got to say the third, fourth round, and say was playing a fellow Premier League team, then yeah, you want to field your strongest 11. You want to effectively make a point against it and say, right, give it a shot, see what you can do. But at the same time, I'm massively agreeing with you, Kev. This is a game where, yes, obviously the story will be that a League One team knocked out a Premier League team if we get beat. But I don't think it's going to be one of those things Regis will look at and be like, and my main focus is the league. And he said that he kind of put that kind of word in the start of the season that his main ambition and the club's ambition is to be comfortable in the Premier League. And then next season is when we'll start thinking about progressing further on, either up the league or other trophies and stuff like that, if we're able to do it.
Yeah, I just want to add on that quickly, Adam, because,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously Kev's got it right. There's no point risking anybody. But like I said, with the changes that we can make, I don't think that we're really risking anybody. And I think the team that we're putting out should be more than capable of being Huddersfield. Yes, Huddersfield will be up for it, you know, because it's a chance to come to a Premier League ground, etc. You know, but to me, this competition is one of those that we've really got to look at. I mean, we're playing, obviously, this round, you know, next week, end of August still. Then I think there's a game in September at some point, you know, October, November, and then there's a break, I think, from then till, you know, the sort of quarterfinals, which are, you know, generally in January, or are they the semi-finals? It might be the quarterfinals in December sometime, January. And then you have the final at the end of February, starting of March. And I think it's not really too much of a fixture congestion then. I think the FA Cup, if we went for a run in the FA Cup, would be a lot more damaging because it's tying in with the end of the Premier League season. I think where a lot of the teams that are involved in it, you know, we don't get the big European or the teams that are involved in the European competitions at the moment. But when you take them out of who's going to be in the team, in the competition itself, there's no one really in that competition that we should be fearing. You know, I think we can go quite far in it until I think it is the fourth round or whenever it is when the you know, the European third round, sorry, Kev, when the European teams come into it. But then teams that are in Europe have still got the, you know, that because of the league format they're playing now, they're playing a lot more games. So will they, you know, focus on the Carabao Cup? Most definitely not. Because those teams that have got you, especially with the likes of, say, Crystal Palace, Tottenham, the lot up the road, you know, where their squads aren't the biggest and they've got a lot of European games, they're really not going to be bothered about the Carabao Cup. You know, and obviously the likes of, you know, Arsenal, Man City, Chelsea, Liverpool, etc., Yeah, they will put their weekend squads out because they're going to need to rotate their best squads for the league and the Champions League, etc. The only team really that could be a danger in it would be, I'd say, Man United, because they've got no European football, and for them, they're probably saying exactly the same thing as what we're saying now. We've got an opportunity to win this.
That's one thing I was gonna. You've brought up something I was going to say there. That's similar to what my thoughts were. Where United, to me, this year, United's got effectively a free hit, shall we say, in the league. They're more focused on getting themselves back established, shall we say, because obviously they've had a rough end of last season, finishing the worst position they've ever finished in the Premier League. So to me, it's more for them, let's get back up the table where we need to be. And at the same time, let's do it with winning a cup. As in, you've just said there, Robin, in regards to the League Cup, it'll be one of those for them where they can then go, look, we can win things. But likewise, I think.
So it gives you the opportunity to get into Europe, and they need to get into Europe. That is their big thing this year, is get into Europe, because they need the revenue from it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we should, like you say, apart from them, I think we should be targeting it as well. We should be looking at this because it's all at the early part of the season.
Mm-hmm.
We can sort of like go for this one, I think quite hard. Obviously focused on the league, but I think we've got the depth, we brought in 11 players,
Mm-hmm.
And we weren't exactly a bad team last year,
Mm-hmm.
So the depth that we've got, with the new players that have come in, we should easily be able to put out a decent enough team in this to progress.
Yeah, indeed, yeah. We'll have to just wait and see, because obviously at the time of recording, we're just hypothesizing. Sorry, that's the word I was looking for.
Easy for you to say.
With things, yeah, who we think who's going to start, because obviously we don't know yet. We haven't heard the press conference yet of potentials in or out, and we don't know about injuries potentially sustained this weekend and things like that. So we're just giving our general thoughts on that. What I'd say, lads, is lastly, one thing I do want to touch on before we get predictions is that lovely tribute from the Premier League fan mail that got released just I think it was yesterday at the time of recording. If anybody hasn't seen it yet, I recommend you do. But
Bring
get the
tissues.
tissues. Yeah, grab your tissues. That's what I was supposed to say. Yeah, grab your tissues, because that is a real tearjerker. And hats off to Wilson Isidore for going out to young Jack's mum and having a conversation with her, and the best reaction ever. I think that was just sublime. Robin, I know you've seen it. Kev, I think you messaged in the chat as well, saying you've seen it as well. That just shows how much of the club means to people in the region, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't take that kind of video to kind of tell people that. I think it just shows how connected the club are with its community. For a player to take time out of their busy schedule to go and spend time with the family to record that means a lot. And today obviously there was a video released about a member of the new flag display people, We Are Wearside. The club have really got in with the community now, and I think it's something we'll see more and more of throughout the season, where it's our first year back in the Prem after 8 years out of it. They're probably trying to appeal to a market of fans that have stayed away to say, come on, your club are back, come back. Because, I love the fact that when you drive through Sunderland now, more than ever, you see people wearing Sunderland shirts on a random day of the week.
Yeah.
I know, Robin, you probably don't see it down where you are. But
well, yes and no. I mean, we do see a fair bit. It's weird. I mean, there are Sunderland fans everywhere. Obviously, I mean, there's quite a few of us just in my household, which are walking around in shirts. But yeah, I mean, it's a community thing. I mean, the club is a family club. It's always had that appeal to it. I mean, obviously, I spoke before about how obviously my family, ended up supporting Sunderland. I mean, obviously, at the time that my dad and his brother wanted to go to football, and obviously my granddad, he used to have a week at Sunderland and a week at Newcastle. But because Newcastle wasn't a safe place for kids back then, he took him to Sunderland, and that's where it all began. And there was a lot of families like that. Where they go, especially. I mean, my dad's up from Allenmouth, just outside of Alnwick. In that Northumbrian sort of area, it wasn't just Newcastle. It was a mix. Where obviously County Durham and so on was always red and white. Obviously Gateshead used to get a bit of a mix there, but yeah, I mean it's always had that appeal to the family side of it, and I think you see that you see the kids there and stuff. And I touched on it the other week when we went to Augsburg and the families in Germany and that, and the parents, both parents with the kids, brothers and sisters and stuff, enjoying the day out, and that's what it should be about. We focus on that, and like you're right, the club have tapped into it. The club have got that feeling back. Yeah, I mean it's taken a few years. We've had 8 years out of the Premier League with some 4 horrible years sort of down in League One. But we've bounced back. Yeah, we've cried on Netflix and so on. But it's appealed to people, and just this week, we've got Mexican supporters now. And a big thing in Mexico that they've decided as a country to support one club this season, and it happens to be Sunderland. And I mean, I noticed in the club shop last week when I went in, I heard Americans, I heard Dutch, there's Japanese there. Obviously, I saw the German Black Cats and stuff. You've obviously got the Black Cats of Italy, the Bilbao Black Cats. And it was sort of like International Fan Day again, just for the first game of the season. Because we're going to get that now. Now we're back in the sort of like Premier League. We have got a bigger appeal.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of the Mexican one, I think that is just tremendous. The fact being they've came out, and Regis was asked about that in the presser today as well. What do you make of the whole Mexicans wanting to come over and support us? And Regis gave the best answer ever. More support, the merrier. Bring it on. Like if you can back in a voice from another country, do it. Back us to the hilt, and we'll put on a performance for you. So I enjoyed that. But yeah, lads, let's get a couple of predictions across the line. Let's see if me and Robin can go back to back again. Probably not, but we'll try. Let's start with give me your Burnley and Huddersfield predictions. Kev, we'll start with you because you're going to be out of the country, so you're mean.
Yeah, so for me, I think, look, Burnley, I would go down there, happily take a 2-0 win. I think just go down there, settle the nerves down, get into the good start that, like Robin said, we need. This is probably our best chance to get some points early on. Probably 3 winnable matches. That's no disrespect for the teams we're playing, but when you look at the teams that are coming up, December's a hard month. Let's get these points now, because when you start facing your Liverpools, your Arsenals, your Man Cities, that's when the points get harder to get. So yeah, I think a 2-0 down at Burnley, and that should also start to quieten down some of the 24 points difference. Because, as far as I'm aware, there's no points advantage when you start a new season. In terms of Huddersfield, I'd be happy with just leaving there with a 1-0, get away with it, go and send the B team out, move on to the next round when some of the European teams, as in the Premier League European teams, start to come into it. But if we crashed out at Huddersfield, that's fine by me.
Yeah. Go on then, Robin.
I'm favouring 3-0 again, to be honest, against Burnley. I've got a feeling after watching them against Tottenham, they are there for the taking. But, they're going to be extra resilient, I think, to try and make sure that doesn't happen. So, Yeah, I mean, I think we'll be more comfortable than 2-0. So, yeah, I'll stick with a 3-0 for Burnley. Huddersfield, I think, you know, with the changes we're going to make, I think we'll come away with a win, but I think it might be a bit of a nervy 2-1 come the end of it. I think with the changes we've made, and Huddersfield being really, really up for it, and they've got some good players, so, they've got players which were playing in the Championship not long ago and so on. So, yeah, 2-1 versus Huddersfield, and I'll say 3-0 against Burnley, I think. And, I'll be happy come Tuesday night if those are correct.
Fair enough. Fantastic. Thank you. For me, I'm going to go 2-1 against Burnley. I just think they're a very tricky opposition. I know they've just been beaten, but they still are a very physical squad, and they do know how to score. That's no mean feat. So I think we may concede one. I think it'll be a sloppy goal conceded, but I think we've got enough in about us now to go and get the win. Against Huddersfield, I'm going to say 2-0. I think we'll keep a clean sheet, and I think if it is Pato in goal, I think that'll do his confidence a world of good, just to get him a clean sheet in for his first game of the season, and he'll kind of brush the cobwebs off, so to speak. It'll be nice to see, obviously, Gucci back at the Stadium of Light. It'll be a nice little hurrah for him. He even said himself he's glad to be back, so that's good to see. But other than that, lads, I think that's everything touched on and covered on today. Obviously, we've got something special coming up soon, but we'll keep that under wraps when we're ready. Thanks for you joining me, Kev.
Pleasure, mate, as always.
Cheers. And thanks to you, Robin.
Yeah, no, thanks, Adam. And obviously you enjoyed Germany, Kev. I know I did.
Thanks, lads.
Excellent. And as ever, thanks to everyone else for listening. And as ever, we'll see you on the next one.